Hey guys, come on in. We're about ready to start another episode of Jimmy Rants. As always, we are at jimmyrants.com. If you miss any of the past episodes, we put them all over on jimmyrants.com. We also put them up on YouTube. So if you are the YouTube type and you want to watch this on YouTube, or maybe you're watching this on replay on YouTube, thanks for being there. Definitely type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You'll find the show. The direct URL to my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Living Low Carb Man. Living Low Carb Man is also how you get me on Instagram. So you spell that L-I-V as in Victor, I-N-L-O-W-C-A-R-B as in boy, M-A-N. And that's how you get to me on YouTube. You get to me here on Instagram. Definitely follow me on Instagram. I go live generally around 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then if I do a second one, if the spirit moves me, I'll do a second one at 5 p.m. Likely this is the only episode I'll do today. I did 2 yesterday. But check it all out again, jimmyrants.com. So if you've been following me lately, you know I haven't really been talking a lot about keto or fasting or cholesterol or any of that. I definitely want to do a whole episode, you guys, coming up sometime this week, and we'll definitely get this in there, where all I talk about and all we talk about is your questions, like whatever questions you want to ask about health, about keto, fasting, cholesterol, all the things. I do want to give you that opportunity because we still have those issues in our mind, even if they're not top of mind. So be prepared for that. I probably will do it either like on Friday or sometime on the weekend. But I'll definitely let you know when we're going to do that. Ask me anything. But we're still on talking about this COVID-19 coronavirus crisis. And again, if you haven't been paying attention to what I've been doing with this, I don't know anything about infectious diseases. I say that straight up front. So my talking about this has nothing to do with any direct knowledge or expertise when it comes to dealing with this coronavirus itself. But what I do have a lot of experience with is human behavior and being an encourager, being someone who can present information clearly so that might maybe calm you down. And so that's what I've been trying to do on these Jimmy Rant shows, is providing information that is an encouragement and helps calm you down and gives you a little bit of a respite from all the negativity. Now, I do have a headline that I want to read from here and give my commentary on. It is from CNN, so it is one of the mainstream news outlets, but I thought they did a really good job talking about something that we're all thinking about. And I just realized I put the wrong title down there. So we did that Jimmy Rants last night. It's right on Facebook, but on here, let me see if I can unpin that. Sorry guys, I just realized I'm going to unpin that because I don't want you to think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a business idea to help you out. I did that last night. So if you were expecting that, I do apologize. I did that one last night. No, what we're talking about here today is maybe you've noticed that with the seriousness of the pandemic that's out there with the coronavirus, that people are still just kind of in denial about the severity of it, that they're really not taking this whole idea of staying home and staying away, socially distancing. They're not taking it seriously. Has that like troubled any of you that are taking this seriously? Have you wondered why is it that people are defying that? Well, CNN did a really good job of kind of outlining about 5 or 6 reasons psychologically why people do this. I thought it was really fascinating as I was reading this, kind of the mindset of where people go. And I know that anytime you're faced with something that's outside the norm, your brain goes through some processing, and it depends on who you are, depends on how you already think. If you're a high-level thinker, it kind of sometimes gets you a little bit harder to get there sooner than later. Like just 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we thought this was really no big deal. It was isolated in China and Italy primarily, and they were having an issue, but we didn't really have any kind of issue here in America. And then suddenly, boom, it just like becomes this issue and our lives were turned upside down. And so a lot of us are heeding that call here on Instagram, if you go on a story, they now have a little sticker that you can put on your story called "Stay Home," and so people are tagging their posts when they're talking about being inside and staying home. And so everybody's encouraging you to do this. They're saying that's the way we flatten the curve, how we're going to get this thing under control. But still, there are people, idiots, who are still going out and defying this order, this kind of request, please stay away, socially distance yourself from people, stay in your home. They're defying it. So I wanted to read this story as to why some people are doing that. Living through a pandemic is strange. Most of us have never been asked to make this kind of sacrifice before in our life, to stay home and limit your contact with other people. All of this disruption can make people anxious, and for some that includes ignoring the coronavirus altogether and then carrying on as though it's business as usual. I can't lie that when this first all started coming out, I didn't really take it as seriously in my mind right away as they were wanting us to. And it wasn't like I was being reckless and like going and like hugging all over people, but it was just, I think we kind of get to that point where you hear something like stay home, we need to, level the curve, we need to socially distance. All of these were kind of new terms and a new thing for us that when we first heard it, I think all of us kind of went, yeah, I'm going to be all right. But then we realized how it was more than just us being affected, and then we started acting appropriately. So I've pretty much been holed up in the house with just a little bit of contact out there to go get some food and things, but very minimally from what I normally do. We've been carrying on as business as usual. There's some people that are doing that. Despite repeated pleas from public health and government officials to stay home and slow the spread of COVID-19, many people just won't. Spring breakers still crowded beaches. Shoppers packed in grocery store aisles. Older Americans refusing to skip going to church. Well, a lot of churches have just shut down. And they're doing their church virtually. Now, the older population may not have technology set up. I know my dad is 70 years old. He does not own a computer or the internet. So he doesn't even have a smartphone. He has a flip phone. So if he wanted to go to church, he would have to physically go to church if they would allow him. But people they're not changing their habits, some people. When I did go to a grocery store to get food, there were people like hovering all on top of each other in the lines. Meanwhile, I'm back here like separated from them like the plague. It's like, okay. I will compliment 7-Eleven though. I did go by 7-Eleven down on the corner down here early in the morning. And they've got this big sign on their front door that says, please stay 6 feet apart from other customers and socially distance yourself. So at least there are efforts to get that message there, but people don't have to heed those messages, and a lot of them aren't. So why aren't people taking this threat seriously? I know a lot of us who are bought into the fact that we need to take it seriously, we're looking at these people and going, what are they thinking? And so there's some very specific reasons why they're acting this way. They asked a bunch of psychologists, CNN did, and they said there's a handful of reasons. Most of them come down to human nature. So see if any of these sound familiar in yourself or in people you know, and it might explain why people aren't obeying this. So there's a professor of psychology at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan, Gordon Asmundson. He's been studying how psychological factors impact the spread of and response to COVID-19. So he's broken us all down into 3 groups. See if you recognize which group you're in based on your response to the pandemic. So you first have the over responders, which we'll get back to those people in a minute. They're just as bad as the people who are under responders, which is what we've been talking about. And then all the rest of us fall somewhere in between. So it's the over responders. You people bought up all the friggin' toilet paper. Yeah, thanks. Now we can't wipe our butts. So they're the ones that also stockpiled on water bottles and canned goods, and you bought off all the meat. So all of us carnivore people are like jonesing for a ribeye steak. I literally tried to find some yesterday. Sam's Club had a few ribeyes, but man, Like I'm used to getting like certain things and they're all gone now. And so there's the over responders. They've stockpiled months upon months worth of supplies. They're scared, and they're trying to buttress themselves with stacks of toilet paper, empowering them to help ease that fear. So I know that a lot of the stores are now trying to force that titrating back on stockpiling. At Sam's, when you go to Sam's, they have big signs on a lot of the items that are critical, like water, only one per customer. Well, you could buy one today and then go back tomorrow and buy one tomorrow. But so you could still stockpile. You just have to do it slower than buying 1,000 of them at one time. But that's good that they are doing their part. But you got those people that are over responding. And those people are pretty bad too. Like you might be holed up in your house, but you got like boxes upon boxes of stuff all around you. You don't need all that stuff. I get it. People are scared and it's the unknown, but you're basically taking away from other people when you do that. Then there's the people, most of us are in the middle. We're doing what we're being asked to do without panicking, but we're not lax about it either. We're called pandemic Goldilocks. So not too little, not too much, just right. We got a little bit of fear about what's going on, but we're pretty chill about it because we realize this is the reality. That's where most of us live. I think most of you watching this right now, you're pretty much in that Goldilocks pandemic mode, in the middle. But then you have the under responders. These are the people we're talking about here today. They are purposely disobeying all the public health guidance. The ones who consider themselves invulnerable. And it's a lot of young people. There are some crazy like millennial and younger people that are out there acting like this thing isn't a big deal. It's not going to harm them. So why should I adjust my life? And of course, what they're not realizing is it's not just about them. But we're so narcissistic as a society that if we think if it doesn't bother me, it doesn't bother anyone, so stay out of my way. So that's a mentality that a lot of these under responders are taking. It's not just young people. There's younger minded older people too, but it does seem like the younger generation, late teens and 20s, are really not taking this as seriously as they need to. And a lot of that too is education. They don't understand how this works. And of course, they're not paying attention to the talking about trying to flatten the curve. They're just living their lives because it's fun for them and they want to be out. They don't want to be cooped up. So that's bad. Like these people, they don't realize what they're doing. They aren't following the idea to socially distance. In fact, at spring break in South Florida, a lot of them gathered still. And a lot of them are starting to be diagnosed with COVID-19. And it's not a surprise. I still have a heart for them, even though they're acting stupidly. They're learning the hard way that all of this is real and that you needed to be taking it more seriously. They totally believe they can't possibly get sick, and they even though it could prevent more vulnerable people from becoming infected if they socially distanced. That doesn't matter. I think, again, narcissism rules the roost. When you don't think it's going to impact you, you don't care about other people. And I think perhaps this is our wake-up call that for the first time in our lives, if we've been very me-centric, it's time for us to be other people-centric and thinking about someone besides ourselves for perhaps the first time in our lives. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to put their heads around because we have been trained in our brains to be very me-centric. And so I have tried to resist that urge. I've always tried to think of other people first, even before my own needs. But human nature does say that we're going to do what's in the best interest of us. It does, unless you fight that somehow. These under-responders may be to blame if this virus continues to spread for months across the country. So when they first came out that we were going to have to socially isolate ourselves from others, distance ourselves, stay in our homes, they were thinking maybe 30 to 60 days. Well, if these people keep getting out there acting like there's nothing wrong, we could be looking at September before any sense of normalcy comes back to our lives again. And even then, it's not even going to be normal. I think we've got years upon years of the ramifications of this long after it's over. But in the here and now, these under responders, they don't realize they're going to make us all have to hunker down longer than we need to. And my concern is the longer we're having to do this, the more it taxes on our brains, the more we kind of go, is this really worth it anymore? And then other people will become under responders, and then it gets really bad. So do your part. If you're staying in and you're staying home and you're socially distancing, keep doing that. And please encourage these loved ones in your life that you see are under responders. Give them some kind of information that wakes them up to the reality of this. So that's the first one. The next one is the reason they go out and they don't really care that this is happening out there is they see it as a way to regain control of their life. Do you feel like you've lost control? If we're being honest, we feel like the freedoms that we've taken for granted. I did a whole Jimmy Rants the other day about kind of lessons I've learned about myself in the midst of this. And the very first one I said was, I appreciate freedom so much more than I ever have before. And for a lot of these under responders, they see it as a way to regain control. Just like those panic buyers hoarding toilet paper, the anti-social distancing set, they continue to gather in groups and ignore advice because they feel so powerless over this situation. So by defying it and saying that the virus is insignificant, in their minds, it makes the virus seem smaller, like it's not really bothering them. This is according to Vail Wright, the American Psychological Association's Director of Clinical Research and Quality. One of the challenges, he said, with uncertainty is it reminds us of things that are completely out of our control. That's driving a lot of people crazy. When you can't control things and you're kind of a control freak or a perfectionist, you know who you are, it's going to wear on you. And so as a defense mechanism to that, some people are taking it to the other end and like, yeah, this is no big deal, to try to make this crisis seem small, when in the end, it's not small at all. And yet in your brain, that's how you cope with it. I think this sort of defiance to a certain extent is a way that people are trying to regain control again. And what they don't realize is it's not regaining control. It's more out of control than ever before if you do that. In the same way that hoarding supplies is detrimental to curbing a virus, so is defying the clear advice from health officials. Gathering in crowds only increases one's risk of exposure. Limiting contact with others is the only way to spread the coronavirus, to slow the spread. And they should learn from history. In 1918, when we were in the midst of a very similar outbreak around the world, there were very different responses to this. And I remember that was right around World War I, and we were sending troops off to war, and there were huge parades being held by tens of thousands of people lined up in the streets. I want to say it was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in the midst of this very real crisis, health crisis of a similar extent to the coronavirus, and those people all got infected pretty much, and a bunch of them died. They estimate that from that 1918 incident, like 50 million people around the world died. It was because they didn't have the knowledge. Of course, we have lots more technological advances now in medical to help, but we also have huge technological advances in getting the word out. I mean, if you're on social media at all, you should have lots of information at your fingertips about how to handle yourself in the midst of this. So we know better now, so we should do better. Next one, they don't think it's their problem. These are the people that are ignoring that this is a big deal and they're not staying home and they're going out as if nothing's wrong. These people think it's not their problem. For some, it seems like a very distant problem, shouldered by people in foreign countries. Oh, it's happening in China. Oh, okay. Oh, Italy's on lockdown. Okay, those poor Italians. But they don't see it as here in America. It's sad, yes, but it's just not their burden. It's not top of mind for them. So they're not taking it as seriously as they need to. people who live in communities where infection isn't very widespread or officials haven't imposed any lockdowns, they may be less willing to distance themselves, according to Stephen Taylor. He's a clinical psychologist and the author of The Psychology of Pandemics, a historic look at how people respond to such crises. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on their part, but people downplay the significance, maybe because they're not seeing people in their communities come down with the virus. And that's very real. It doesn't become real to you until someone you know, someone you care about, gets it. And then, God forbid, if they get it and they're in that very risky category where they actually have major complications, where they have to be hospitalized for this. And I was watching a video from a doctor in Chicago who's on the front lines of this right now, and she was sounding the alarm. She's like, we are out of oxygen tanks. We're out of appropriate kind of equipment to be able to help people. So we need people. Stay home. For the love of God, stay home. Stay socially distanced. We're not going to get a handle on this if a week from now you're out partying now and then you get the coronavirus COVID-19 and you go to the hospital to try to deal with it a week from now. We ain't got nowhere to put you. And at that point is where this becomes really real, because they'll have to make decisions about who lives and who dies, possibly, who gets care, who doesn't get care. It's a very stressful time for those medical workers. Please keep them in your thoughts and prayers, because this is bad, and it's because of the exacerbation of it, of these people that aren't taking it seriously, that we have to continue to stay holed up, and probably will a little bit longer. Can you imagine if when they first told us, everybody stay in your homes, try to self-quarantine as much as possible, socially distance yourself, if you have to go out, stay 6 feet away. If everybody did that instantly, this would probably be over in about 30 days. But because you got weirdos out there that are defying it for all the reasons we're talking about here today, we're going to probably have to deal with this for many more months than we needed to. Next one, they're numb to it. The coronavirus is creating what Professor Taylor calls an infodemic. So we've heard that it's been called a pandemic, but because our society is so news heavy, because there's so many ways to consume it, we're now experiencing an infodemic. And I think the infodemic is far worse than the pandemic. And so what he means by that, people are just eating up everything in the media about this thing right now. Social media feeds are flooded with stuff about coronavirus. Conversations with loved ones, all they talk about is COVID-19. And so a lot of people, they get so bombarded by all this COVID-19 that they become desensitized to how severe it is. Because here's the thing too, the longer this goes on and the longer you're not seeing any symptoms, you think in your head, oh, wow, we overblew this. Like this isn't a big deal. Why were we ever worried about that? I'm not sick. Nobody in my family's sick. This isn't real. What? And we're going to start playing those games of, it's not as bad as we thought it was, because it just happened to not hit us personally. But don't fall for that. Don't think that because it's not hitting you, thank God it hasn't hit you. Because if it does and you're in that risky category, you're in trouble. And there may not be any way to take care of you if that happens. People are just getting numb by it. And I wonder if there's going to be a turning point where you got these people that are totally ignoring this and they're devaluing that this is anything. But then you got people that are serious about it, but then they're seeing those people out there that are devaluing it, and then they're getting stir crazy in their houses, and then they're like, screw it, I'm going out and I'm not going to worry about this anymore. At what point does that happen? 2 months? What if this goes on 6 months? Does it happen 3 months in? And then it extends this even more. You see why this is playing with people's heads right now. Which is why I think the prudent thing for those of us that are being reasonable about this is to just stay home. I don't know how much clearer they can make the message. And I love that there's a hashtag stay home on Instagram and Facebook. And they're putting little placards and they're trying to encourage people to do that. But you're going to have a certain segment, which we've been talking about here, that regardless of what you say, they're just not going to believe it. And they won't believe it until it hits them personally or someone in their life personally. And then they'll believe it. This information overload contributes to mixed messages. Younger people have been told repeatedly that they're at a lower risk of infection. I kind of hate that too. I read a statistic the other day that if you're a teenager, there's less than a 1% chance that you'll even get this virus, much less die from it. And yet they hear that and they go, 1%, just getting it. Well, I'll take my chances. I'll just go out there and da-da-da. And so that's kind of feeding into this a lot. That, along with compounded with young adults' proclivity for risk-taking, can mean they don't fear the virus. There's been plenty of studies, you can Google them, about this whole mentality of people in their late teens and into their 20s feeling invulnerable. Lots of studies on that, you guys, where and this is just in general, they feel invulnerable. They feel like they can take more risks because of their youth, because they feel that way. They have that mindset that they're invincible and vulnerable. Well, add to it a pandemic that's very real. Well, I'm invulnerable. This thing isn't going to hit me. Why do I have to mess up my life? Because a bunch of old people have to stay holed up in their homes. You see how the mentality can take over pretty strong. So that's feeding into this as well. Next one, they're thinking individually. Talked about it earlier. We're a bunch of narcissists. And so when you only think about yourself and you don't think about other people, then this thing isn't a big deal. It's also not just a generational problem. The Western world, and the U.S. in particular, has long prized individual freedom. Well, our country is founded on liberties and freedom and access to go where we want, when we want, within the confounds of civilized society. So we are used to having freedoms. And now those freedoms are a little bit being squelched. So during a pandemic, that mindset can be fatal for those most vulnerable. If you still think you have the freedom to just up and go and come and go as you please, it could definitely lead to problems. That's why healthcare workers, celebrities, and regular folks are all imploring the public not to stay home for themselves, but for other people that are at higher risk, specifically over the age of 60, people who already have compromised immune systems, physicians and nurses who are having to work on the front lines of this pandemic. These are the people. Stop being a friggin' narcissist for once in your life and think about other people. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to be impacted by this in the very short term, could very well die from this. So those of us that are younger, that are more healthy, that have a stronger immune system, we should not use this as an excuse of, well, this isn't going to bother me. If I do get it, I'll get over it. It's no big deal. I'll have a little cough and a sneeze and a fever and I'll be over it. Isn't about that. Okay? This is about slowing down the progress of this thing, because this is unlike anything we've ever experienced in our lives. Community effort is the only way of managing the coronavirus, and they've got a lot more than themselves to consider. So please, if you've never been selfless in your life, for the love of God, for the first time in your life, please be selfless, which means doing your part to stay home, try to make the best of this, and stay away from people who could potentially be infected. Okay? It's important. We got to do our part. Then finally, this is a big one too, guys. And especially, I read a statistic on the Jimmy Rants the other day. 1 in 4 Americans live all by themselves at home. I'm one of those people. It's just me here, so I'm all by myself. And so those people might be getting lonely. And I'm not going to lie, full disclosure, full vulnerability towards you, I have had moments of being lonely. Because you miss human contact, because I'm not only by myself, but I'm also an extrovert. I'm also someone who enjoys the company of other people. I love to socialize with people. I love eye contact with people. I love people smiling at me and vice versa. I love to hug people. You just miss that human contact when you don't get to have it. And so people are getting lonely. And we can't devalue this as a reason why people are getting out and about. All three of the psychologists in this CNN story agreed human beings want connection. And being denied any kind of social interaction for extended periods of time can sting. Now, let me tell you, what has helped it somewhat is doing these Jimmy rants. So thank you guys for being my connection to the outside world. Also, I've been doing video chats with various friends of mine. I've called people on the phone. That all helps, but nothing replaces a physical human being in your presence. And it makes you wonder, did you know that about yourself before this? Like, did you realize how much you craved that attention from other people and being in the presence of other people? I don't think a lot of people thought about it until now, until you're forced to think about it. Now, it's on your radar screen. It can be particularly difficult for older adults who are already at a higher risk of mortality because they're depressed and lonely already. They may be less willing to use any kind of technological tools like FaceTime or Zoom to communicate. We're social creatures. We also have a lot of freedom. It's hard to make the changes that we're being asked to make. It is the very antithesis, I think, for those of you that live in America or the free society around the world. It's the very antithesis of being free is what we're being asked to do now. But I think we all are doing our part because we see the bigger purpose and significance of socially distancing ourselves and staying home. And we will get through this. I mean, if we're looking at months upon months, okay, I think those of us who are in this for the long haul, we're going to do our part. We're going to keep doing our part. And we have to keep doing our part. So what about all those people that are out there right now? There's a bunch of people out there right now that they're just going around, they're touching people, and they're just living their lives like nothing is wrong. What do we do? How do we persuade those people to stay inside? So one of the psychology professors is actually doing a study right now to figure out why. By identifying the psychological factors that contribute to these responses, either too extreme, like buying up all the toilet paper, or too lax, like going out there and acting like nothing's wrong, public officials can retool their messaging. And I think they do. The messages have been so all over the board, people are confused. To convince people to follow the social distancing. That message can be tricky according to the psychologists because some people believe, some believe people need to be scared into staying home. Oh, if you don't stay home, you could die. Some people believe that's the way to go. Others say that using fear can backfire because people who respond fearfully then don't make any decisions based on logic, and thus they're the ones that go out and buy every roll of toilet paper they find on the shelf. So you see how those fear can swing you to both ends of the spectrum. It's difficult to strike an equal tone with the over and under responders, but there's one thing that they all agree on. Convincing people to stay home is our best bet against the coronavirus. So we know those people who are going out despite all the best efforts by public health officials and government officials. Please stay home. I think most of us are staying home. I think most of us are doing a good job of socially distancing. And what we need to do is stay vigilant about that ourselves and hope that the severity of this becomes more real to those people that aren't taking this as seriously, and seriously those people that are overreacting to this. And I do think there's a good number of people in their overreaction. Yes, they're staying home, but they're putting themselves in such a mental state of flux that they're harming their health and they have no idea that they're doing it. So that's kind of a big heart's cry of why I've been doing these Jimmy rants like I've been doing lately. Is I feel like the mental health collectively right now of people going through this is going to be years upon years upon years to recover from. And I think you can start working on that now by realizing that you're in that panicked mode, to realize you're kind of overreacting to this. It is important. It is something big that's happening, but it's probably not as big as you're making it out to be in your mind. but it's not something to be ignored. So come find that medium balance right in the middle of those two extremes, and I think your head will handle this a whole lot better. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. As always, we're going to come to Instagram Live first. We have time, we'll come over to Facebook Live. Again, thank you to my Facebook, Living La Vida Low Carb Facebook page. Welcome in, you guys. As always, go to jimmyrants.com. You can see the past episodes of this show. And YouTube, that's where we keep all the past episodes as well. If you type in Jimmy Rants as a keyword search, you will find the show. David wants to know, how was your time off? I assume you mean my sabbatical. So I did a Jimmy Rants on the day I got back, March the 1st. So go to jimmyrants.com and you'll see my update as to how the sabbatical went. But thank you for asking that question. Appreciate that. We are homebound, says Barefoot Reba. Well, a lot of people are right now. And yes, people should be home. They should. But the question here is, why aren't they? Not everybody is. Beth says, my beliefs in the system are jaded. Yet another question, how much of the reporting is accurate or purposely inaccurate? Can I tell you, Beth, I'm not paying attention to any of the reporting. When I find these stories, it's because I'm looking for things other than like statistical kind of analysis. There's a lot of like predictive things. Nobody knows what's going on. So I don't want you to get caught up in the accuracy or inaccuracy of the reporting right now. I think that does more harm mentally to you than really anything else. So stick to what you know is true. What you know is true right now is you need to socially distance yourself, and you need to do the things that you're already doing. I know you're already doing, staying home and trying to stay healthy and sane in the midst of all this. Jesse says, I haven't been out since I euthanized my beloved dog on Thursday. I'm sorry that you lost your dog. Today I have a need to go out, but I have mixed emotions. Yeah, when you go out, I mean, I go out. I've been out a few times to get, like I said, food and water and different things that I need. But don't feel like you have to be just overly scared when you're out there. But don't go up to people and touch people. And I mean, there's people that just like come right up close to you. And I'm like, whoa, let's stay apart, just in case. Beth says, I went to the beach twice before they closed public parking. I'm considering going to the river early tomorrow to stake out my bubble in the sand, sun, and water. That's devalued right now. I think a lot of people, they're not going outside much. Well, stay in your homes. Well, you're not going to catch the coronavirus breathing the air out there. Go take a walk. If you've got dogs, definitely take them for a walk. You got kids, get them out of that house. They're going to go stir crazy and they're going to drive you crazy. So just make it through this time. Berkeley says 5 University of Tampa students came down with COVID-19 after spring break. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. These people that they didn't take it seriously, they're now having the complications from this. And sure, maybe they'll recover from it and it's no big deal. That's not the point. They all have grandparents. They all have people. They all have stuff they touched. And then this stuff can live on the surfaces for a few days. And if somebody touches that surface and they get it and they're in a compromised group, that's what we're trying to prevent here. Jesse says, I think the obsessive shopping is addict behavior. People tell themselves to stay in, but they just can't. Yeah, well, when you're used to going out, it's almost difficult for your brain to say stay in, because you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm used to going out. And so when you can't go out, it definitely changes kind of your thinking and mentality. So grandma does keto. I don't think so. Get some sunshine and water. I think there was a question Beth had about, is it okay to go out? Yeah, I think it's okay to go out if you want to go to a secluded area near a river. I know a lot of people are going to the woods to walk and take hikes and to clear their mind. Anywhere where there's not people, I think you're going to be okay. I think where it becomes trouble is when lots of people gather so close to each other. Berkeley says it's extremely selfish to leave your home, even immoral. Well, I don't know about immoral to just leave your home, but if you're gonna leave your home, be prudent about it. I try to, when I get out of here for a few moments, if I go out, I only go out when it's like really early in the morning. There's hardly anybody out there. I know I won't come into contact with very many other people. So be prudent about it and go out. What you don't need to do is just go out and act like everything's normal, like it has been. Holly says, supposed to be 70 degrees here in Kansas tomorrow, getting plenty of vitamin D and doing yard work. See, this is the cool thing too, because we have a lot of people that it is getting warmer in various parts of the country. It was 87 degrees 2 days ago here in South Carolina. Summertime has arrived in March, apparently. And so people are getting out more. I did hear that as the temperatures rise, that's going to help cut down on the coronavirus and help this thing kind of get under control. But we're a few months away still from it being warm enough for that to happen. Rachel says it's because young people sometimes stifle with perspective taking. They don't have the experience or wisdom to see beyond themselves. Yeah, narcissism, I guess, is a natural human characteristic until you know better. Steph says, my husband works in our hospital and environmental services. He's an essential worker, cleans the isolation rooms. Poor man cried each morning for the first few days. Cried because he was scared. Yeah, and I hate that he has to, but I guess we all have those essential workers that if they weren't there, we couldn't be taken care of. Gen X says, stay home or be stupid and contagious. That's kind of in a nutshell what we're saying here. RT Varnell, my blood sugar has been elevated. I'm sure my blood pressure too. That's the stress effect. And we've talked about that a few days ago. I did a Jimmy Rants about the physiological effects of the stress of all this. So go back and watch that, jimmyrants.com. We talked about strategies you can use to bring that under control. Problem sleeping, says Reba. So same thing. Those are normal, guys. Normal. Like, your body doesn't care why you're stressed. It just knows you're stressed right now. And so take those activities that will chill you down, because it will kill you. It will hurt you. Maybe not literally kill you, but it will wreck your health to the point that you are going to have long ramifications of this after it's over. Debbie says, New York is starting today to use the combo drugs on this virus. Let's pray it works. Anything that's going to blunt this, the effects of this. Jess says it snowed here in New York yesterday. Well, I'm not saying it's like 87 everywhere, Jess, but certainly, yeah, where you live for sure. I'm not surprised it's a snowstorm. Jesse says, I feel terrible for shopping cart collectors in the parking lots. Yeah, I was watching them in Sam's Club the other day. They're all wearing gloves. They all have the anti-disinfectant stuff, and they're cleaning like crazy before they let people touch these shopping carts. So yes, I feel bad for them too, but no, I don't think they're being put in a whole lot of danger, because they are taking precautions, giving them cleaning supplies to take care of that. All right, let me come over here to Facebook, see what you guys have to say. Hey guys, what's going on? See what you got here. Let me tilt you up so I can see you a little better. All right. Is it safe for us to get out and not get the virus? Well, I mean, I think it's probably not smart to get out, because your propensity for being exposed to it increases dramatically than if you just stayed in your house. So that's kind of what the public health officials are trying to say is, yes, it probably is okay for most people to get out to get some essential supplies, but don't linger out there. Don't think everything's fine, and then get back home, wash your hands, do all the things we've been talking about when you get home. Like, I get home from just being out, even if I don't touch anything, I come home and I thoroughly wash my hands for about 3 minutes with lots of soap and water, warm water, and I am still doing fine. So I don't think it's just okay to get out willy-nilly. Had a mental breakdown yesterday over this virus. It hit me all at once. Had a day of a pity party, crying, and feel so much better today. I wanted to eat everything. Thank God, only keto foods in the house, so not overly calories-wise. You're such a blessing. Well, and that's my concern. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable about that. I think you're speaking for a lot of people. And I can't say I haven't been pulled by that this is stressful, so therefore I should have what, and you fill in the blank, junk food. If you're feeling that right now, just know that's normal. Just know there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, you're keto, but you're gonna have those feelings. That's some of the biochemical reactions that's happening in your body. Again, I addressed that on my Jimmy Rants about a week ago. So go to jimmyrants.com about the mental effects, the physical effects of what this is doing, what the stress about this is doing to you. It's totally normal. And when you're desiring having something junky, it's usually something that's straight up carbohydrate. And we explained why in that Jimmy Rant, so go check that out. Yeah, Joan says you'll subject yourself to the virus if you keep going out. You sure can. Kim says we were on vacation, no opportunity to hoard. We bought toilet paper the week before. Yeah, I already had a big amount of toilet paper on my property even before this stuff hit too. So I didn't need to hoard either. Bonnie says, I know a person who's really sick but yet going to work right now. So wrong not knowing what you have and then infecting others. Companies should inspect and take temperatures before entering the work zone. I feel for us not going to work, but this is very real. It's not your normal cold and flu. No, it is not. Stress is doing a number on me, says Amy, and the isolation's playing games with my depression and anxiety, but I have a good support system and that helps. Stress eating has been a battle. Now that we have room, we're starting a garden and have bought chickens. Yes, guys, I have 22 backyard chickens, and those girls with the warmer weather, they have been laying like crazy, like easily a dozen a day. So I know I'm going to be okay with food, if for no other reason, just eating those chicken eggs every day. John and I are at a higher risk with this junk because we've had past health issues, and that makes me extra anxious. Well, it sounds like you're doing the right things, Amy. I'm definitely going to give you a call later. Amy's a good friend of mine that I've known for years. So hang in there, Amy. We will get through this. All right, let's see if anything else came in. Nope. All right, guys. So I know we're all worried. We're all kind of looking at these people like crazy people who are out there and they don't need to be out there. Just know you're doing your part. Don't get fooled into believing that this is all just all for naught and, oh, I didn't get sick, so why are we doing this? Just know you're doing it for a good purpose. How much longer this is, I don't know. I think expect at least 2 more months, likely 6 more months. I mean, if you have that in your head and you go ahead and realize we're in this for the long haul, it's going to make you prepare in your mind, or at least it does me. When I think that this could be September before we kind of get back to any kind of normalcy, it helps you get there and calm down before you get there. It's kind of like the old marketing thing, don't overpromise. Like, you'll get it by Monday, and then they don't get it till the Friday after that Monday. Are they mad? Yeah. But if you tell them, you'll get it by that Friday, but then it comes on Monday, are they happy or mad? They're happy because their expectation, you didn't overpromise. Same thing with this. Don't overpromise in your head that this is all going to be over by the end of April. It's probably not. But if you tell yourself in your head, you know what, this could probably go until September, okay, then reality sets in. Then if it's over in June, hallelujah. You see how that works? It's a little bit of mind games, but it helps relax your brain. Make your world small and live for sunset and sunrise. I heard that helps too, says R.T. Varnell. I love that. My building back there, and I have a hot tub back there, in the evening, the sun sets right in front of the screen where the hot tub is. And I'll get in that thing and let that evening sun rays just come all over me. And I'm just enjoying the view. I'm getting that sun in my eyes, which helps me sleep better at night. Once the melatonin kicks in, it's glorious. So thank you. That's a good way to end this, Jimmy Rants. Thank you for that. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me over on Instagram Live. I'm at Livin' Low Carb Man, LivinLowCarbMan. Want you there. Please follow me. I have good content, I think, on my stories and on my regular page, but we do these Instagram lives generally around 11 a.m. Eastern time during the week. On the weekends, I do 2 p.m. Eastern time. The one, and then sometimes I throw a 5 o'clock one in during the week. Not today. I'm going to take a break today. I kind of know my limits here, so thank you for giving me that grace to take time away sometimes. JimmyRants.com, you can see all the past episodes. We also throw them up on YouTube, so type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. So thanks for being here, you guys. We'll be back again real soon with another episode of Jimmy Rants, and we'll see you then. All right.